Rare Eurasian curlews are a common sight here, and they've been joined by some exotic newcomers. Flamingos in the waters of the Chiemgau. Like all the wildlife here, they have to deal with violent stormy weather more frequently. What does the future hold for this extraordinary natural region? According to nature photographer Andreas Hartl, this area at the foot of the Bavarian Alps, between Traun and Inn, is one of the most beautiful landscapes imaginable.
For me, the Chiemgau and Lake Chiemsee are simply the most beautiful places where I love to go. When I'm out around the lake with my camera, I think, my God, it doesn't get much better than this. I see animals, I see plants that I just don't find anywhere else. And I come here as often as I can. You can't ever really get enough of such beautiful things.
A realm created in the last ice age. A few thousand years ago, the landscape here consisted of bare moraine ridges and bleak meltwater valleys. This also gave rise to the Eggstedt-Himhofer Lake District, northwest of the Chiemsee, a chain of kettle holes filled with groundwater. And then, gradually, the first humans began to settle here, as historian Barbara Rappenglöck tells us.
The Chiemgau has certainly been settled for several thousands of years, and we need to remember that the population was significantly smaller than today. The first phase was the hunter-gatherer group, and then of course came agriculture as well.
Around 2,500 years ago, humans encircled a cult site near Truttlaching, using a wall of earth and wooden posts. An epoch in which a remarkable incident took place in the Chiemgau.
The Celts, or also their predecessors here, witnessed a truly blood-curdling occurrence in this region, a massive meteor strike. We're standing right here at the greatest testament to this event, namely the Tuttensee, which fills the huge crater left by the meteor.
If a cosmic boulder really did crash down to Earth here and vaporize, and that's also been confirmed recently by geophysical measurements taken by international scientists, then the devastation must have been considerable. Fire and tidal waves swept the landscape. At a single blow, life for the population of the Chiemgau was turned upside down. These upheavals left traces that are still around today.
It's remarkable that there are absolutely no lake dwellings at the Chiemsee. That's a complete contrast to the other Upper Bavarian lakes, where there's plenty of evidence of such houses, just not at the Chiemsee. We don't know whether this is due to the frequent recurring flooding, or whether there's another reason. One possible explanation could even be the meteor strike here at the Chiemsee. That could have simply destroyed all the possible dwellings here.
Meanwhile, however, there is a kind of lake dwelling at the Chiemsee, the boathouses, and the constant change that happens here assigns every lake resident a place. In autumn, vast numbers of fish seek shelter under the houses, shelter from all kinds of predators looking to fatten themselves up for the winter. In the past, shoals of young fish used to hide under fallen trees in the water, but there's none of them left. So they swim under the quaint boathouses, protected from grey herons and other hunters like the large merganser. The northern pike also lies in wait for them. A European eel also tries his luck, but the swarm of young Danube bleaks, common roaches and vimbers bewilder the attacker. The large merganser is an expert fish eater, thanks to its hooked, serrated beak. A bird like this needs 300 grams of fish per day, which must be painstakingly sought out and caught. Here, on the other hand, is an opportunist. The common moorhen is perhaps the least gifted fish catcher on the lake. He doesn't even have webbed feet. But he has a big appetite. Just like the great crested grebe, which thanks to having lobed toes can swim and dive. But normally still comes away empty-handed. And the moorhen? While all the plumed professionals are put off by the swarming effect, the moorhen makes a sudden stab and is successful. But it's not only the animal life that's attracted by the charms of the Chiemsee.
Today we wanted to go swimming actually, and I've never been here, although I'm a local, so I'm taking a look today. And then I want to take a dip in the water and go for a drink.
The best place in the Chiemgau really is Feldwies. That's a must-see.
It's just great. You have everything here that you need, so I really love this spot. I've also found my home here. The view is beautiful, the people are friendly, the water is mostly actually nice.
I think the Chiemsee is just awesome.
At almost 80 square kilometers, the Chiemsee, at the heart of the Chiemgau, is the third largest lake in Germany and has always been enormously popular. The lake islands are major attractions, with monasteries and royal palaces drawing hundreds of thousands of tourists each year. It wasn't always like this. Even the most famous incomer to the Chiemgau took some persuading. Konrad Hollerith, a Chiemsee guide, knows all about the fascinating history of the region.
King Ludwig II really wasn't so impressed by the landscape here. He loved the romantic mountain vistas, like at Neuschwanstein. But the solitary location of the Herreninsel, that was the right place for his castle. The king acquired the island in 1873, and then 5 years later, in 1878, the building began. After 7 years, the money ran out, and construction was discontinued.
Back then, no one could have imagined how effective this secluded palace would be in attracting visitors. Long before the King of Bavaria, and even before the time of the Celts, the first people had settled in the Chiemgau. Discoveries of hunting weapons from the Neanderthal period have proved that the land was populated as far back as the Ice Age, probably since there was plenty of game around to hunt. During the Bronze Age, one of the most important trade routes out of the Alpine foothills came through here. New types of tools and weapons were being fashioned from bronze, and a new era was beginning. The land around the Chiemsee has probably been continuously settled since then, up to the present day. So how is it possible that such a heavily visited, populated area can continue to support a diverse wildlife? In the year 15 BC, the Romans arrived from over the Alps, and trade and culture in the Chiemgau developed further. Nature, however, kept on presenting the human settlers with challenges.
The early humans attached great importance to natural phenomena, in particular exceptional incidents, as they had to try to somehow integrate these into their view of the world. What we explain through scientific theory today had to be built into a holistic worldview and belief system back then.
Which is not to say that certain celestial events today leave us completely unmoved. At a so-called blood moon, the Sun, Earth and Moon are aligned, and our blue planet throws a shadow over the Moon. Because the light of the Sun is refracted in our atmosphere, the light which reaches the back of the Earth throws mostly long-wave red residual light onto the Moon, until the Moon moves out of the complete shadow of the Earth after an hour or so. Our fascination for such events is unchanged, even if we know today that there is an ultimate explanation for all natural phenomena, like for the autumnal coloring of leaves, which occurs when trees break down their precious chlorophyll. When the tree finally sheds its leaves, it's making provision for the arrival of the cold season, when there is a lack of available water. A 100-year-old beech tree evaporates around 400 liters of water per day, something the tree tries to avoid in winter. While many life forms are preparing themselves to survive the winter, right now others are concentrating on breeding, the brown trout, for example. A male with his spawning hook mouth, or kype, and a smaller female float beside their self-built breeding lair. They're literally quivering with excitement. Brown trout are among the autumn spawners, attracted by falling temperatures in the already cold water of the foothill streams. They beat the breeding lair down even further. Then suddenly, they release their roe and milt into the water. The fertilized eggs sink down into the ground, which has been loosened and scoured by the beating of the fish. The fish species that appear in the waters of the Chiemgau are not the same ones as before. This time, it's not celestial events, but rather the actions of humans which are to blame for the changes. Fish have been intentionally introduced to the region, including non-native species such as the eel. Others, such as the Rutilus maedingeri, have died out. Their spawning grounds have disappeared through siltation and pollution, like here in the River Alz. Today, professional fishermen stock the lake with rare fish, even if they're of no economic importance. In the last few decades, gamekeeping and preservation concepts have been increasingly combined as a beneficiary interest. Attitudes towards the bird life have also changed significantly. While in the past, common buzzards and ravens were seen as pests and mercilessly persecuted, today the fishermen toss a treat or two onto the bank for them. Live and let live. Our respect for nature has increased, to the benefit of many animal species. Winter is coming. The Chiemgau landscape is blanketed in snow. This season also brings with it a noticeable change. Winters are becoming milder and snow levels falling. Scenes like this are far less common. More and more species are adapting to the changing climate and spending the winter here, like the great white egret or the Eurasian curlew. Even flamingos are living here now. Just a few years ago, these exotic thermophiles wouldn't have survived a winter at the Chiemsee. Historic footage from the 1970s Shows how much harsher the cold periods were at the Chiemsee not that long ago. The Bavarian lake froze over. Birds who hunted for food in the shallow water would have almost starved. Today, searching for ice on the Chiemsee is mostly in vain. The flat rays of the winter sun illuminate these strange boulders, which slightly resemble organs. These so-called Hirnsteine, or brain stones, get their furrowed surfaces from blue-green algae, which form and also feed on limestone. Mussels also inhabit the brain stones. Viewed in fast motion, one can see how the wandering mussels got their name. Wandering mussels were imported here from the Black Sea region in the mid-20th century. They quickly expanded over the entire lake, much to the delight of the many water birds. Mussel gathering is no easy matter, however. Using sticky byssal secretions produced by a special gland, the mussels anchor themselves to the rock. The black coot has to patiently pluck at every single morsel. Flamingos don't eat mussels. They filter plankton from the water. Through this variety of specialisms, a diverse range of species can inhabit the same environment without the need for competition. Competition rather occurs between animals from the same species. Black coots fight mercilessly when a rival suitor appears. Things are less furious between the great crested grebes. Over 320 types of bird have been observed at the Chiemsee. Around half of them also breed here. While many birds migrate in winter, other Chiemgau inhabitants can be encountered the whole year round. Even if some of them are sometimes pretty well hidden. Old hollowed-out trees are the winter quarters of a truly detested creature. It seeks shelter from hungry birds in dark cracks. A female mosquito has slept out the winter in a rigid state. Now she wakes up along with an estimated 250 million of her co-species around the lake. The mosquito copulated the previous year. Now she begins to lay her eggs and procreate. Reeds only serve as a sleeping place, not as a laying ground. The banks of the lake would make a poor kindergarten due to the many predators lurking around. The role of the mosquito in the ecosystem is often undervalued.
Mosquitoes are important food for lots of young birds, for European stonechats, for bluethroats, but also for lots of species of fish, like for instance the northern pike. Their young live almost entirely from mosquito larvae. So it's also really important that the environment has not changed so much that the mosquitoes disappear, because then we'd also lose the birds and the fish.
Mosquitoes and songbirds depend entirely on one another. Many birds feed mostly on insects. Inside the reed stalks live the larvae of the Phragmites' green-eyed fly, in huge numbers. They're the staple diet of many reed-based birds, above all the titmouse. The bluethroat also only sings in places with enough insects around to eat. Otherwise, his offspring couldn't survive here.
Insect life around here has really deteriorated considerably. You notice it also because the insect-eating birds like our swallows, for example, they're really in decline. You notice it on cars. In the past, after 100 kilometers, the windscreen was covered in insects. Today you can drive 1,000 kilometers and the screen's totally clear. At some point, the migratory birds won't come here anymore either. They'll wonder why they should bother flying from Africa to Central Europe when there's no more to eat here. Then there just won't be any swallows left.
There are still swallows at the Chiemsee, however. You can still hear the chatty twittering of these feathered charmers from their roosting areas, sometimes in places where their little waste packages aren't totally appreciated. While spring is awakening down in the lowlands, snow is still lying in the Chiemgau mountains. The black grouse lives here. Just a few decades ago, the cooing noises of the mating grouse could also be heard in the marshes around the Chiemsee. But those days are over. The changes sweeping through the Chiemgau are least noticeable in the mountains, probably because the cold rock cannot be cultivated, and because there are no larger settlements this high up. Time seems to stand still here. Things are different in the lowlands. Down here, hardly a square meter escapes change. The grey heron lands on a man-made fen on the southern bank of the Chiemsee. This area is a kind of accidental product, which is appreciated by several animal species. Grass frogs can also be thankful to the area for their spawning ground. Their current habitat was once submerged under the surface of the Chiemsee. Humans lowered the lake level, unintentionally creating wet meadows and bogs. An environment in which natural processes take place, just like in a true wilderness. Today, this is a natural conservation area, in which hunter and hunted invariably meet. Hard to take for amphibian lovers, but in an undamaged habitat there are enough frogs. And Eat or be eaten is, after all, part of a functioning ecosystem. For the mosquito female, the end is in sight. Areas of shallow water, which are only sometimes filled, are ideal for laying eggs, as there are no fish around and hardly any other predators. Only swamp plants, like reeds, compete for nutrients.
The big reed areas of the Chiemsee, the marshes, are of course perfect for lots of birds. And for a photographer, it's a special attraction if you're on the lookout for particularly beautiful bird shots here at the Chiemsee. Whether that's the marsh harrier, the blue throat, or something really special, the little bittern, which you can still find in the reeds at the Chiemsee. It's the smallest of the herons, just a bit bigger than the blackbird. They have a nest, an amazing nest, right in the middle of the reeds, with snow-white eggs. One of them always stays at the nest, the male or the female. And when the male comes, he normally brings a little gift for the female, a reed stalk or something, to keep building the nest with. And that's a total highlight, when you manage to get a photo of a little bittern at the Chiemsee.
Little bitterns and harvest mice. Both are the smallest representatives of their tribes. They're rarities in the indigenous animal population and are being seen around the Chiemsee more and more. They're also both specialized at living around the reeds, building their nests out of and among the stalks of this large native grass. The great crested grebe also loves the reeds, as the hollow stalks are buoyant and good to build floating nests. Small fish, such as the European perch, form the basic diet of the grebes. Only in places with abundant food sources can species further up the food chain also reproduce. Mayflies appear at the Chiemsee in spring, often as a downright invasion. On sticky hot days, the primitive insects emerge from the lake in huge numbers, and alongside the large mayflies, myriads of chironomids. On a few days in spring, the sky truly darkens when the insects take off on their evening mating flights. The air is filled with smaller and smaller insect bodies, just like plankton, but up in the sky over the Bavarian lake rather than in the ocean. In the evening, the importance of this mass invasion for the ecosystem is displayed. Mayflies lay their eggs on the surface of the water. Many lake dwellers have been waiting for this, as they can now almost effortlessly eat their fill. Almost 100 types of bird profit from the annual Mayfly Hatch Fest. Yet it's not only the birds that benefit from the generous offer. The impending darkness of night lures some ravenous beasts from the depths. Danube bleaks pluck the mayflies from the water's surface, and quickly before they become prey themselves. Spawning time lies ahead, so a full stomach is especially important. All this is played out in a cultural landscape steadily populated since the Ice Age. The region has changed significantly since, however, and continues to change today. But the change has occurred so gradually that the plant and animal life has kept up and adapted. Whether predators, whose numbers are dwindling elsewhere, can keep hunting around the Chiemsee perhaps depends on how quickly we humans are shaping the environment in the future. The most dangerous of the predators is the northern pike. Anglers are frequently catching pikes almost 1.5 meters long at the Chiemsee. And this one is also an impressive size. This common roach doesn't dare to move a muscle. The pike braces itself. Evening meals are also being eaten on the banks. Under piles of branches, twigs and silt lurks the offender who spares neither the bankside promenade nor the bathing beach in his relentless pursuit of trees. Only recently have beavers returned to the Chiemsee. For 100 years, the giant rodents were considered extinct in the region. But now, numbers here are increasing again. They especially like to build their lairs by the lake inlets, where parents often live together with 2 generations of offspring. The living quarters inside the lair are almost 1 meter across and 0.5 meter high, and the offspring are snug and warm here in any weather. Will the beavers once again remain part of the animal world around the Chiemsee? That depends not least on the acceptance of local residents, who now and then have to endure the odd poplar or willow tree falling into the water. Anyway, many people have indeed become rather more tolerant. At least the days are long gone when fish stocks were plundered and great crested grebes were hunted down as competitors. Especially because the Chiemsee has plenty of fish. 50 million whitefish alone are bred at the Chiemsee every year and released into the water. And simply fishing the lake empty is not quite as easy as it was before.
The lake actually had a higher water level in the past, in medieval times. That's because the Chiemsee fishermen blocked the water from running off using a so-called weg. This was a barrier made from alder bushes, a kind of large weir. So the fish were caught, but the lake water was also chocked off. This was then forbidden. After the lake was gradually fished empty, a set of regulations were put in place under Duke Heinrich the Rich, who was responsible for us back then.
Since then, the fish stocks have recovered.
There are still a lot of fish in the Chiemsee. It's worth the fishing. We have 17 professional fishermen. But of course, there's something else here where money can be made. If we can open up this beautiful landscape and the culture we have here to tourism.
Visitors to the Chiemgau can enjoy culture and nature and splash in the warm water of the Chiemsee, a virtually unique experience. Like here in the shallow waters by the ex-Roman settlement of Bavarian, present-day Zeebrugg. By May, the water has already reached bathing temperature and is clean and oxygen-rich. The Danube bleaks also appreciate this and are now eagerly reproducing. They lay countless millions of eggs within a single week in the loose gravel bed. And numerous other animals profit in turn from this abundant supply. Since ancient times, ducks have gorged themselves on Danube bleak caviar during this time of year, on a changing lakefront.
Yes, the lake has changed dramatically. Right after the melting of the glacier, the Chiemsee was 4 times as big as today. Bit by bit, the lake has silted up, so that we only have 80 square meters of water surface left, compared to around 300 right after the Ice Age.
The Tiroler Aachen is the main tributary of the Chiemsee and discharges more than 300,000 cubic meters of suspended load and gravel into the lake each year. As a result, the lake will gradually fill up and at some stage disappear. This gravel comes from the Chiemgau Mountains, and although humankind has engineered the flow of the Aachen, the load keeps on coming.
It's not only this natural silting through the tributaries that's changed the lake, but humans have also interfered. People have actually lowered the water level. They hoped that they'd create agricultural land, but what has actually been gained? First of all, a large marsh around Grebenstedt, which was very unhealthy for the inhabitants at the beginning, because a huge infestation of mosquitoes developed, which even led to malaria.
From the malaria breeding grounds, a vital natural conservation area has long since been created. Marshes like this are rare these days. Once, an almost closed chain of raised bogs lay at the foot of the Chiemgau Mountains. Most of them have been harvested for peat through the centuries. Yet even exploited hill moors like these are valuable habitats full of specialists from the animal and plant kingdoms. From dry peat, as is found in dehydrated bogs, the heather grows especially well, bursting with purple blossom in summer. And in turn, the heather is home to the drab assassin bug, which hunts spiders. This rare insect is only found in marshland. The carnivorous sundew plant is notorious for gaining its necessary nitrogen from insects, allowing it to survive in the nutrition-deficient peat soil. It lures its victims with a sweet scent and traps them using a sticky substance. Finally, the prey is digested through the surface of the leaves. There's no escape. On every single sundew leaf, there are over 100 adhesive tentacles. The black bog ant takes advantage. A relic of the Ice Age, it can still be found in some Chiemgau marshes. Black bog ants don't hunt much for themselves. They'd rather plunder the sticky tentacles of the sundew plant. 2/3 of the trapped insects are robbed by the ants. An astonishing diverse range of creatures exists in the small pools and ponds which glitter on every marsh. A world all of its own, unknown and under-researched. A water flea scuttles over a minuscule root, which is being used as a nursery for water mites. These oddly symmetrical desmids catch sunlight like a tiny solar power station, while the paramecium goes on the hunt for bacteria. The microscopic creature discards indigestible substances and excess water. Another miniature predator lurking in the dark marsh pool is the ciliates. Marshland is not only a valuable habitat, however, it also functions as a kind of sponge. It sucks up and retains the rainwater, releasing it again slowly. Fluctuating water levels have always been a part of life at the Chiemsee, from its formation around 10,000 years ago by a dying glacier, and ever since, when it has continuously shown its own power as a considerable force of nature. The majestic lake has always inspired awe.
The world of the Celts here in the Chiemgau changed suddenly. With the meteor strike here, the forests burned down, ashes were hurled into the atmosphere, and then it rained down with acid rain. Pieces of the meteor, which landed in the lake, set off a 25-meter-high tsunami, which tumbled over the banks. So this region has seen a lot of action. And that could have something to do with the old saying that the Celts feared nothing except the sky falling on their heads.
The sky over the Chiemgau is unlikely to fall on anyone's head, but the current changes in the region are nevertheless profound.
Just how the Chiemgau and the Chiemsee will develop over the next decades, or even the next centuries, no one can say. But it's important that people get their priorities straight and accept that the Chiemsee, the Chiemgau, is our major resource, and we want to keep it that way. This would be a very good approach for the future.
Some of that fate doesn't rest in our hands, however. In the Chiemgau region, there is almost twice as much rainfall as the German average. Flooding is more and more common. Submerged forests, piles of broken branches and trees, pure chaos. But many creatures continue to find the most marvelous strategies for survival. European fire ants, forced out of their nest, drift across the meadow like shipwrecked sailors, protecting their queen on all sides. There are also losers, however. A little ringed plover's eggs fall victim to the wet and cold. Landscape, nature, climate. The change continues. Hopefully not so fast, so that humanity and the animal kingdom can continue to keep up.